Welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast. I'm Bela Gandhi, the founder of Smart Dating Academy and your host. I started Smart Dating Academy in 2009 because I had this crazy knack of giving people dating advice that actually worked, that I took. I've been married for almost 25 years, and now my company helps people to date smarter and to find love. This podcast is meant to bring more love into your life, no matter where you are and what you do. And we're here to bring more life into your love. Smart daters, welcome to this week's episode. I am really excited to learn how to be better with this episode myself. I have the amazing Sara Jane Ho, who is now, I consider her to be a new friend of mine that I just met in our green room. But Sara, if you're not familiar with her, which I think you probably are, is an international etiquette expert, y'all, host of her own daytime Emmy-nominated makeover reality show, Mind Your Manners, on Netflix, and it's adorable. I've watched it. She's also the author of a book of the exact same name. She grew up in Hong Kong and she went to Exeter, Georgetown, Harvard Business School, is a total badass, gorgeous inside and out. Sara Jane, welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast.
Thank you, Bella. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. So tell us, with this amazing pedigree and international background, how did you start doing what you're doing?
Well, I believe that you can live many lives. And I grew up in Hong Kong, studied in the States. My first job out of college was actually finance, not unlike yourself. And then, great
oh,
training.
Boy.
Great training.
Good training. Did you, right. You know how to take it. That's for sure.
Yeah. You learn how to deal with men.
Oh, up, down, and all around, and all kinds of them.
And living in New York City, lots of fun dating. That was like the best dating ever in New York City. And then I went off to Harvard Business School, did my 2-year MBA. And 2012 was when I graduated. And I was thinking, what do I want to do for my career, for the next stage of my life? And at that time, well, I guess I have a public answer and a private answer. In terms of like macro, if you look at it on a macro perspective, China, and I'm from Hong Kong, which is part of China, China was going through a very interesting time in 2012 where it was becoming a global power, a world power. And you had people who grew up, during a very poor time in China, during the Cultural Revolution. And in the 90s, even, China was still a very poor country. But after 20, 30 years of being economically lifted out of poverty, and then now having all the resources and wealth they could want in the world, a lot of people wanted to know how to move through the world a bit more confidently and gracefully. So that's where I thought, well, there could be a market opportunity to open a etiquette school, a finishing school in China. Now, I grew up as a little girl with my mother entertaining in the home. And I would watch her create these really magical moments between people who were meeting each other for the first time, over dinner, over tea. And Christmas would be dozens of people at our house. My house was very warm and very loving. And I watched her as a hostess really know how to navigate any person in any situation with confidence and grace. I sadly lost her to cancer when I was 21. And my life completely changed. So my home, which was formerly warm and lively, became very cold, very empty. My father didn't entertain on his own in the same way. He remarried very quickly. And
as men do.
As men do, because they can't be alone. Well, hopefully my father doesn't listen to this podcast. No, but my stepmother is a lovely, lovely lady. And so I just, there were times where actually when I didn't even like going back home to Hong Kong because it reminded me of how lonely I really was. But I'm a Sagittarius. My friends are like my family, and I like to organize a lot of social gatherings and bring people together on my own. So I realized, well, what if I could combine what I think is a market opportunity in China with what I love doing myself and with continuing my mother's legacy?
Oh, and I bet your mom is so proud of you. She's looking down on you and knowing that what you observed growing up is what you're now doing to help people on such a big scale.
Well, it's funny. When I grew up, my mother's motto was live like a local. So anytime I had a question or even something as simple as like, we're on vacation, where should we go eat, to, maybe bigger questions, she would say, live like a local. What would a local do? And my father, he always taught me that he showed me how to treat everybody with the same kind of respect and courtesy, whether it was the cleaning lady in his office or Margaret Thatcher, who he met, and he really showed me that. He's a true gentleman. And I think what would really tickle my mother now is that growing up, I went to international school. I was very westernized. When I was growing up in Hong Kong, it was a British colony. And my mom really pushed me to learn and study Mandarin. And she said, in your blood, you're Chinese. You are Chinese. Someday China will be a great and powerful country. And if you as a Chinese person don't even know how to speak Mandarin, that will be a great shame. And so she would force me to go through Mandarin tuition, which Mandarin is a very difficult language. And now I've actually married a man who speaks no English. So he's a Chinese guy who speaks no English whatsoever. And I think that probably tickles my mother the most.
Oh my gosh. So full Mandarin. Have you taught him Cantonese as well?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't even bother. I mean,
Right.
I'm learning his dialect now. He speaks a dialect called Li Shui dialect in addition to Mandarin. And so I did ask him, I said, do you want to take some English lessons? Because, we'll be back and forth a lot. And he said, oh, we don't need to. Just one of us needs to speak English and you do.
Right. We're good. Okay. So how did you talk about your dating life? You gave us a little bit of a sneak peek and said New York had great dating, and now you've married somebody that doesn't speak English. So kind of take us through your dating trajectory, and then we're going to get into etiquette.
I started dating very late. And I do think that led me to have to have a very delayed maturity in terms of knowing how to be a girlfriend, knowing how to be a partner in a serious and committed relationship. And I think that is the case actually for a lot of my Asian friends, because our parents are so focused on us not dating. So
Yes.
at least when we're studying, right? It's like, and there's this running joke in mainland China that's like, when you're in high school, when you're in college, your parents like, you're not allowed to date, you're not allowed to date, you're not allowed to date. And the day after you graduate from college, it's like, why are you not married?
Get married. There's an expiration date stamped on your forehead now. I mean, my parents are immigrants from India, so we're the land of arranged marriages. So, I mean, my friends and I, it was inculcated in us at an early age. It's like, oh my God, if you're 26 to 28 and you're not married,
oh, you're done.
Yeah, you're donezer. So
Insta for life.
Oh my God. Completely false. We're all happily married, but that's a whole nother story. So I'm completely with you. It's like, don't date, don't date, don't date. Get married 5 minutes ago. What's wrong with you? So yeah. And when I have Indian parents that now reach out to me at Smart Dating Academy, like, oh my gosh, my son or my daughter has a boyfriend in high school. I say, let them understand this world. Let them make their mistakes under your roof. Let them know that life is an and. You can study, develop a kick-ass career, be successful, and have a healthy, happy relationship.
Yeah. So for me, luckily, my parents never pressured me to get married. I'm probably the last one in my friend group to have gotten married. I got married at the age of 36. But I do think that if I married, I think any choices I would have made at a younger age would be wrong choices, and I would be unhappy. So I didn't have my first boyfriend until after college. And I was living and working in New York City. I miss those days. That was 2007. New York in like the 2000s was so fun. I loved the pickup culture. you would get picked up eating dim sum at Chinatown, like on your way to the restroom in the corridor, you walk past somebody and somebody would pick you up. Clubbing, coffee shop. And it would just be like, some people, I think in Asian culture, there's a whole stigma against like, oh, like pickup culture is bad, you meet crazy people. But that wasn't the case in New York City. I mean, even whether dating online or offline, you have to have the ability to filter people out, right? You'll meet crazy people no matter where you go. You'll meet good people no matter where you go. And so I strongly believe in dating a lot of people and having men. Don't marry your first boyfriend, because then you have no frame of reference and you don't know if something that's going wrong is it your issue or is it their issue, and how to handle that. You need to practice with a lot of relationships and boyfriends before you really have a strong sense of self.
100%. I preach to all of our clients, our whole methodology involves, kind of setting the stage, knowing who you are, what kind of partners actually make you happy versus just dating for resume virtues, and then developing, to your point, a dating funnel, right? So you know how to filter people in, and then you know how to get the rotten fish out of the net right away, and then dating those people slowly over the course of 3 months or 15 dates. We have a whole process. Here's what happens when you take a nerdy finance person and turn them into a dating coach. We've graphs for healthy relationship trajectories, graphs for narcissistic trajectories. So all of those things, but really to your point, having multiple people that you have dated. And for those of you smart daters that are dating, multiple people in your dating funnel, or, dating is like a horse race. You have to have multiple horses to make it a race. And ultimately, you're the prize at the end. But if you're doing one and done dating, this is my PSA for multiple dating, you tend to settle. Right, the S word in dating, because you don't have a frame of reference. There's sunk costs. You don't want to be single again. Oh my God, it's better than going on the apps. And then what do? We ignore red flags. You guys that are listening to this are not seeing me waving my red flag, but no, there's so much value in dating lots of people before you make these big decisions. And if you're out there dating, having a dating funnel.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now how did you meet your husband?
We actually, well, I guess, so firstly, wind back a little bit, I was in a 4-year relationship. And you mentioned sunk cost fallacy just now. It was so wrong for me on all levels. And we were on again, off again in that last year. But at the same time, I was like, I'm 34. I'm 34, sunk cost fallacy. I've like given 4 years. It's hard to meet somebody. It's not that easy to meet somebody in China. Maybe this is as good as it gets. We have a lot of similarities, kind of like similar resume, what you were saying, like the whole, we both like grew up here, studied there, And I actually, on day 9 of shooting my Netflix show, broke up with that person over text. Because I was like, here I am shooting my show, telling my students to be their best selves. But then on the other hand, I have this partner who's really bringing me down and who's just really not helping me be my best self. And at that point, I thought I was so done. I said, I'm ready to be single for life. I don't care. It's better to be single and happy than to be unhappy in a relationship. There's nothing more isolating, more isolating than being unhappy in a relationship.
Totally.
So, and you know what? After I did that, like I just threw myself into my work. Every woman after a breakup just like skyrockets.
You're like, oh my God, right? Because the dead weight has been lifted off of you. So suddenly you're like, I'm so much lighter. And we start to float and rise. So yes, get rid of those shackles. If you're listening to this, another PSA, you're bringing out all my PSAs right now. Get rid of that person who you're like, well, I'm just going to wait for somebody better to come along until I get rid of this person. Fallacy. Nobody ever nobody better is going to come along. You have to cut the ties to lighten and rise.
And so I actually have a feng shui perspective for that, because I grew up in Hong Kong with Eastern philosophies and spirituality, and we're big believers in feng shui. And in feng shui, for a woman in your chart, your husband, he has the guan wei. Guan means like official, sort of like male official, the official position, almost like, so he's like kind of like the man in your life position. And if that position, if that space is already taken up by somebody, it's not available to other people. So that's why you want to break that up and clear that position to let another man come in. But I wasn't even thinking that. I was like, I'm so done. I'm going to be single for life. I don't care. Even though all my Hong Kong girlfriends all got married, like literally on the dot at 27 years old.
And then that's what we were supposed to do.
And Hong Kong is more of a sort of traditional and conservative place. And so me and only two other friends in my sort of friend social group were not married. One of my girlfriends, she's gay. The other one is a huge party girl. And so it was the three of us who were like, you know, sort of the last ones left. Me and the party girl got married like in the same year, like a year later. But, you know, I was ready to be single for life. And then I shot my show. It was amazing. Like, I just felt like it was such a sense of achievement. And then and this is the middle of COVID, at the height of COVID, I flew back from Sydney to Shanghai. I quarantined in a hotel for 14 days. And my husband actually started asking me out when I was in quarantine. Now, you're probably wondering, how is that possible? Because you're in hotel quarantine. Well, he added me on WeChat, which is like a, you know, it was what Donald Trump was trying to ban.
Totally.
It's like WhatsApp, but it's like a
WhatsApp in China.
Super power app. And I'd met my husband actually like many years prior, like 5 years prior, but I actually forgot about meeting him. And it was an event that I'd hosted, and I used to host a lot of gatherings at my etiquette school in Beijing. Each event would be like 70, 80 people. It would just be different parties and cocktails. And a friend of his had brought him, and he'd saved my number, but never added me on WeChat. So my husband just added me on WeChat, told me that, you know, on which occasion he'd come to my school and met me. So I was like, okay, this is a real person. Accepted his request. And then literally, like, as after I popped out of quarantine, the next day we had a first date, and 7 months later we were legally married.
I love that. I love that. And how did you know he was the one?
A couple things. Number one, he let me be myself. It is surprisingly hard to find someone who will let you be yourself, who will not be critical, judgmental, try to make you do things, try to make you be, you know, who doesn't let you be yourself. And after
he doesn't dull your shine, because look at everything you had achieved already, right? And so, and for somebody to just let you be, and who isn't intimidated by you, right? Can take the main man energy, how do you say it? Why? What is the word? The Mandarin word?
The guan wei. Yeah. Guan wei.
Yeah. And let you be the main lady of your life.
Well, so clearly he's a very secure and confident person, right? And that's what you want to be, because insecurity breeds all other vices. So number one, he let me be myself. He also probably was not intimidated, because he'd never heard of Netflix. Like, Netflix is actually not, it's banned in China. Of course, all the shows are on bootleg platforms, and all the young people watch them anyway. But, you know, my husband is 14 years older than me, and he'd never heard of Netflix. So to him, he thought I was shooting some like little Australian TV commercial, probably.
He's like, go forth.
Like, yeah.
You do you.
It's like, how interesting. He's like, you're going in the middle of COVID and quarantining both ways. You better be making at least $10 million for this to be worthwhile. I was like, okay.
You're like, wait, what? He's like, charming. Continue on.
And secondly, he gives me a safe space. I don't feel like I have to hide anything from him. So I can tell him, like, just, the worst thing when I've misbehaved, I can, or I have no secrets. I don't feel like I need to keep any secrets from him. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is I trust him completely. I know he would never lie to me. He's never lied to me. And fourthly, life with him is fun. He's a Chinese businessman, so he's very spontaneous. He'll think of like crazy ideas and fun ideas and will just spontaneously do things. And he's so supportive of my career, of me being in, not many husbands would let their newlywed wives be halfway across the world chasing their dreams. And my husband said, people have to have dreams. So don't even hesitate. Go follow your dreams.
Oh my gosh. And where are you guys based now?
We're between Shanghai and LA. So
Okay.
I'm between Shanghai, LA, and Hong Kong because I grew up in Hong Kong. I like to see my dad. He's getting old. And I have some exciting projects that I'm working on in the States, such as this is my brand, Antiforta in the background. It is a intimate care brand formulated with traditional Chinese medicinal herbs. So we have wash, wipes, and sprays for your vulva to fight odor, dryness, and irritation. Our pocket sprays and wipes are great to have on a first date, or before you get intimate, or before and after intimate moments.
Right. Hopefully not on a first date.
Hey, we're not judgmental of people who have one-night stands.
Absolutely. Hilarious. Oh, that's great. Well, congratulations on all of that. I love Shanghai and Hong Kong. My prior life after finance was in manufacturing. So I was in Hong Kong is absolutely one of my favorite places. So I find that I can find clothes really readily when I go to Hong Kong because they make them in smaller sizes. So it's my favorite place to go. So I'm really excited for. Now tell us about your etiquette school and give us all of the tips, because dating is a large exercise in first impressions. So give us what you've got. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And I came out with my book this year, also called Mind Your Manners. And it's divided into different chapters. So there's social life, family, and dating is a whole chapter in itself. I like first dates that are more relaxed and therefore not formal. To me, there's nothing worse than a first date, which is at a really, if let's say it's like watching a play or watching a movie where that's not actually quality time because you can't get to know each other, or if it's at a really stuffy restaurant. Because you know what, you can save the stuffy restaurants for later on. At stuffy restaurants, like there's so much that you're being focused on, right? And things that you feel like, it's just more formal. And when things are more formal, you're less relaxed. So I like my first dates with strangers to be going for a walk in the park, getting a cup of coffee, getting a drink, and just keeping it relaxed. You can control the timing. So if it's not going as you hoped, you can exit completely. You're not stuck into a 3-hour meal. And it's most important to wear something comfortable. So don't try anything new. No new types of eyeshadows. No new types of hairstyles. No new high heels. Definitely not, because it's so unattractive when you're hobbling around painfully in heels.
Right. You never know if you're going to park 6 blocks away. So be ready to walk. And you're right. When you're relaxed, you're authentic. And you want to make an authentic connection. So I love walks, little hikes in safe places. And I always tell our clients a good first date, it can be, prior to the first date, I like pre-qualifying video dates because I feel like that leads to a hell of a lot less disappointing dates, especially when you're meeting people using the apps, right? So for you met your husband in the wild, years before, you didn't remember, but for those people that are dating online and you're looking at 5, 6 photos, right? And you're wondering, people think, okay, well, we'll talk on the phone. I'm like, during COVID, the only good thing to come out of COVID was the addition of video in our lives everywhere, including the dating apps. So do a video chat before you agree to give someone even a walk, right? Because listen, crazy can't hide for more than 15 minutes. So if somebody's truly bananas, it's going to come out on the video chat. And then guess what? You can just get off the video chat and you didn't zhuzh yourself up for a first date.
I love that, because it's true now. A lot of dating has gone online. It seems like all my friends who are marrying each other recently all met on apps. And so why not stay online and do that first filter via video? You're saving, time is money, right? You're saving each other a lot of time. And then after that one meeting, or I think even a phone call, you can actually tell a lot about somebody from their voice.
Totally. 100%. I mean, for me, absolutely. Prior to COVID, it was absolutely do a phone call. But now with video, it's like a phone call is more 2D, but video, it's almost as good. It's not the real thing, but at least you can see this person, look at their inflections, how they speak, and it can make you more interested in a person and develop a connection even prior to your relaxed date. So it'll be more relaxing, or you can just say, oh my gosh, that person looked nothing like their photos, those photos were 5 years ago or 50 pounds ago or whatever it is. And then because I want people to save their energy for good dates, ultimately. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of doing some pre-screening because we have people going on a lot of dates, right? And so I want less disappointing dates. And, back to the etiquette, I don't know that I've ever used the word etiquette for this, but when I tell my clients to suggest video. So let's say somebody says, hey, Sarah, how would you like to grab a drink or go for a walk, right? And you could say, you know what? Hey, that would be great. How about we do a video chat and we can sort out the details? Now, if someone says, I'm not a video person, to me,
Red flag.
that's a red flag. If someone is not willing to respect such a basic wish from you in the beginning in today's world, most likely there's something to hide, or they're showing you that they're very controlling and rigid. Whatever it is, I'm like, red flag, don't go.
Absolutely agree.
Okay, so you agree with my etiquette on that. As the etiquette expert.
Yes. And I love the way you say that, because you're not putting it up like a test. You're like, yes, let's agree to go on that walk. Let's just discuss logistics on the video, right? So that way that they don't feel like they're being put through a test. But hey, if there are red flags, like, hey, you know what? Maybe, boss asked me to do a project, new deadline, like, sorry.
Gotta go, right? Oh my God. Or if you're on a video date and, the person just seems crazy or whatever it is, you're like, oh my God, I left a cake in the oven and it's burning. I've got to go. And you can just get off the call, right? So, right.
Exactly. And you know what? You're strangers. It's your first time meeting. You don't know them anything. They don't know you anything. If you're on the receiving end of that, if you're the crazy one and the other person is saying like, oh gosh, I have to go, then so be it. You don't know each other anything.
Absolutely. And I like what you said. I look at all of these little things. They're like small litmus tests for people, right? And so if you say, let's do video, and if somebody's like, no, okay, bye. They don't want to do a phone call. What do you have to hide? Okay, bye, right? So there's all these little, I call them little left or rights, right? And people show us who they are. As Maya Angelou says, it's up to us to believe them. So when you suggest these things, you can do so much vetting that you might not even be aware of.
Absolutely.
So is there anything from a dating, I mean, I would say we can even open it up. Like, what are the biggest mistakes that you see people making in their day-to-day life, in their day-to-day manners, whether it be in our real lives or on a date?
Not asking open questions, not showing interest in the other person, but especially so for dates. And actually, this is a lot of ladies, it's their number one complaint when going on dates with men.
Yes.
Because men are just not showing interest in them. And the men are probably just like so happy to be on a date with a woman, somebody who they think is listening to them. and they just go on and on and on and on and on about themselves. But whether you're on a date romantically or whether it's like a platonic meeting friends for the first time, acquaintances for the first time, it's so important if you want to make a good impression in a short amount of time and feel like you've built a connection, a meaningful connection in a short amount of time, you have to show interest in the other person. And the way to show interest in the other person is to ask open questions, questions that require several sentences to answer, as opposed to just a yes or no or a one-word answer. And when you ask open, so for example, a closed question would be like, where are you from? LA, right? That's a closed question. But if you ask something like, oh, where did you move to Chicago from? And why did you decide to move to Chicago? Right? That's an open question that requires several sentences to answer, and you learn more about that person. And then you can ask follow-up questions.
Totally. And this is where I think, Sarah, introverts can really shine, right? Because your superpower probably is your ability to listen. And so if you're a good listener, there's always gold nuggets. I always say listen for the gold. When you ask a question, especially an open-ended question, people will give you so much fodder if you're truly listening that you don't have to worry about a conversation going flat. Everybody's so afraid of those pregnant pauses in conversation. But if you're constantly listening for the gold, a good conversation becomes like an easy tennis match where people are hitting the ball across the net. And my mom always said, if you've heard your own voice for 5 minutes, it's time to give the other person a turn, right? And even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I really need to impress this person, and this is whether you're on a job interview, anywhere, get the other person to talk about themselves. You don't want this to be all about you, even though you want someone to like you or hire you or want to go out on another date with you. It's not going to be because you're trying to impress them. It's how you make them feel.
Totally. And in fact, I would even go a step further than your mother and say 40 seconds is the most you should be speaking, especially in a one-on-one conversation. In my Netflix show, I say this, there's like the traffic light rule, where if you're in conversation with another person, you're speaking for 20 seconds, like, okay, green light. If you're over 20 seconds, orange light, yellow light, like you're edging on, and then if you're over 40 seconds, like you're officially self-obsessed.
Oh my gosh, isn't that so interesting? I bet you people are like, wait, here's a timer. Oh, it's 39 seconds, go, it's your turn. It's like you're in a relay race and everybody's like passing the baton back, forth, right? So I like that.
Here's the thing. I actually like to weaponize silence, and I talk about this in my book, because sometimes Americans especially are so afraid of silences. Asians and Europeans are not as afraid of silences. And in fact, in some Asian cultures, having a silence shows respect to the other person. It shows that you're listening to what they're saying, you're absorbing it, you're thinking about it, and you're formulating your own response. That is what the silence means before you then say something. Now, sometimes I like to purposely drop a silence, especially back in the day when I was going on dates or if I was dating somebody, because that puts pressure on the other person, and they'll oftentimes say something or ask something that is quite interesting. Like they will take the conversation in a different turn, or there may be something on their mind, which they maybe needed a silence to then have the courage and space to come out with and ask you.
Oh, that's great. I like that. Weaponize the silence, right? Just look at the other person with a small smile on your face, right? Which just diminishes the awkwardness of the moment. I think if there is those pregnant pauses and both people like look away, right? It immediately says, oh my gosh, I feel this disconnection. I need to look away. So just maintain eye contact and smile. And one thing that we have our daters do is have a couple of what I call jumpstart questions in your back pocket, right? So if the conversation truly does fall flat, let's say you've respected the silence, nobody's saying anything, have something that you heard maybe in the conversation that you can hark back to. That's bonus points because it shows you're a good listener. or have something really, just lighthearted. Like, I've been listening to this amazing podcast called the Smart Dating Academy podcast. Have you heard of it? Like, oh my gosh, I'm just kidding. I'm clearly being self-promoting here. Haha. But no, really just thinking about things that you can talk about that are really easy, that can inject a little bit of sparkle back into the conversation, because not only will your preparedness make you feel better, but it's also going to take a giant weight off of the person that you're with, because you've just led the conversation into another realm.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
That's amazing. Now, what do you think about etiquette and dating with regards to paying the bill?
Ooh. Okay.
Dun,
So
dun.
I always say etiquette is contextual. It depends on what culture you're in, what age group you're with. And so I grew up in Hong Kong. It's much more traditional, more conservative. In Asian cultures, it's almost an insult to the man if you don't let him pay, because he's like, what can I not provide? And I think same with maybe more like patriarchal cultures, such as like South America, right? Or even like Southeast Asia, probably even India. But once you go to, let's say, Nordic countries like Sweden, or even like parts of Europe, Germany, people will split the bill, and it's not offensive. And actually that is their normal. And so everybody has their normal. I think if you go by, right, go Dutch, exactly. And if you look at ages, usually people in the boomers, like, it was unthinkable, I'm sure, for a man to split the bill with a woman back in the day if they were dating. But for the younger generation, it's quite common now.
100%. And people, there's so many mixed opinions on this, even in the US, if we just talk about this, where certain people are very staunchly, no, I am a woman and I am a traditionalist and I want the man to pay. But what I've found over 15 years coaching lots of men, lots of women, is that most men appreciate the gesture of women offering to share in the bill, because they're looking at us saying, what kind of a partner would you make? I'm not going to let you pay, but I like the fact that you asked.
Yeah, it's about the gesture. And then, so it's kind of this dance, right? I mean, for me, I remember like when I was in the dating pool, I would actually prefer if we went and had pizza and the man picks up the bill than going to a Michelin and splitting the bill, right? So it wasn't about how fancy we were eating or that. But I think from the woman's perspective, if you want to be conservative about it, is the man going to show that he's making the effort by picking up the bill? And then from the man's perspective, it's like, okay, well, is she going to offer, right? As a gesture.
Absolutely. And ladies, public service announcement. If you offer, be prepared to throw down your credit card. Then don't be mad. If you're going to be mad, don't offer, right? There's like the fake purse grab, like, oh, can I help with that? I'm like, you're better off not saying anything, right? If you make the gesture sincere, because that's what's detectable. If it's inauthentic, that's very perceivable and not evaluated in the way you want it to be.
Absolutely. But like this whole thing about, because I do have some girlfriends who are like, no, like I can pay for myself. It's an insult for him to even offer. I think it's really tough for men these days. I think, yes. I don't know if this so-called feminism, if it's helped men at all. And I know the intention was to help women, but I believe in like, of course I believe in like equality for everybody, right? Like I think that's what feminism initially was supposed to be about. So that women could vote and women could have their own bank accounts and all these things. Women could go to school. But at the same time, I feel that even if you look at humans or animals biologically, males should pursue. And I think there's a very clear line between pursuing an aggression, right? And this whole Me Too movement, like we've exposed a lot of aggressive men, like aggressors who should not be, right? Like, I mean, they should be canceled, but it's led to a lot of men feeling like they can't even pursue a woman because out of the fear of potentially doing something wrong. And I do think that is a shame.
Here's what I would say to that. I agree. I think as a man, and I'm the mother of a 16-year-old boy, and so it's really about looking at your own intentions. If your intentions are, I really like her and I would love to take her out for coffee, when you come from that place, you're not going to be cancelable, right? But if you have lecherous intent, that's where you really need to do a self-check, right? If you just think somebody's interesting and you want to take her out to lunch, that's fine. Then most likely it's never going to be interpreted in the wrong way, but it comes from those intentions.
That's a great point. So it's like, I really like this girl. I've been on a few dates with her now. I want her to be my girlfriend. I should ask her, right? Like, I should go steady with her. I should tell her. So that's pursuit. That's taking action and initiative. But at the same time, the intent is respectful.
The intent is respectful. And it was like, hey, for example, to your example, like, hey, Sara Jane, I really think you're amazing. I know we've been on, 15 dates at this point. I would love for us to become exclusive if you're open to that. And what that means is we're not on the apps anymore. We're not dating other people. We're monogamous. And I would call you my girlfriend, right? And that gives you, first of all, it makes you feel important. It makes you feel like, oh my gosh, this relationship is moving in the right direction. He's proud to be in this relationship, only wants to date me. And there's clarity around it.
Yeah, I love clarity. Like I think the older you get, the more you like clarity. I used to play a lot of games when I was younger, just because I was immature in terms of dating, because I was so late to the dating game. And now I love clarity. I love upfrontness. And it's really golden.
Yeah, absolutely. And if somebody to this point asks you to become exclusive, dear listener, on the third or the fourth date, okay, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm following the smart dating rules, I don't want to get exclusive too quickly, just say to them, you know what, I'm so flattered. And I think this is really, I like you. I just don't want to make the same mistakes I've made in the past, which is rushing into something too quickly. I see that this has a lot of potential. So if you can be patient with me, let's just continue to date and see where this goes. But so far, so good. Now, at that juncture, again, it's a litmus test. You can look at someone's intentions. If their intentions are control only, right? They want to be the boss of this. They will potentially get upset with you. What do you mean you don't know? What do you mean you're not as into me as I am? Do you know how many women want to date me? What do you mean? Okay, guess what that is? That's a red flag, right? I always say it's not somebody asking you to be exclusive on the fourth date that's a red flag. It's how the person responds to your bid just to keep things slow. You also have to self-check and say things from a place of love in a kind way that also tells them, I do like you. I want this to move forward. I just want to keep things moving at a slower pace. Now, if somebody responds badly, red flag. And if somebody says, oh my gosh, absolutely, that's fine. You know what? And even if you're dating other people, I know I'm the right one for you. So let's do this at your pace. That's such a green flag response, right? You drive the bus on the speed.
Totally. And it's respectful. It also shows confidence and security. Yeah. And that in itself is so attractive.
So attractive. And again, we are looking for partners. That's a person that can say, okay, I want this, but you want that. I'm willing to be flexible. You can learn so much about people if you were looking for the right things in the beginning. The data is there. it's usually our evaluation mechanisms that might need some tweaking.
Completely. And also our childhood, right? What were our relationships with our parents growing up? Because that's what we always fall back into as a reflex. And if we have issues with, let's say, like there was a controlling parent, then we may fall back into feeling familiar with somebody who is controlling. And that's making a wrong decision.
Oh, yeah. I mean, family of origin has such a profound impact on how we date, how we choose partners, what kinds of relationships we will tolerate or grow in, and what our role is in those relationships. And there's so much to that. That's one of the main things that we help people to do with our process, is making sure that if family of origin wasn't healthy and happy, or maybe, even if your family of origin was and you just have bad dating patterns, to make sure it's like, we're going to protect you from yourself. Basically, I always say we're going to wrap you in bubble wrap to protect you from anything that comes up during this process, which a lot of the times are our own, flawed ways of choosing people based on the past. A lot of times when I hear, oh, you know what, I'm just meeting a lot of boring people. To me, boring signifies a dating pattern. It means you want somebody who's going to raise your anxiety, because we misinterpret fear as excitement.
Exactly. So that's the person who's choosing bad boys.
All the time, all the time. And ladies and gentlemen, guys, you do the same, okay? You choosing the bad girls or the bad boys. Sometimes we think that's a high school issue that ends like, oh, I want the bad boy, I want the really cool girl. No, a lot of us can have arrested development with that, and we continue to date for those feelings long term, when that's not what you really want in a romantic, healthy partnership.
And so I think it's important to go through therapy. The only thing that can help you break that chain, that cycle, is minimum 5 years of therapy.
Absolutely. Or like a lifetime of therapy. And the type of therapy you might need, smart daters, is different. It might be talk therapy. It might be EMDR and trauma therapy. We've got a whole, legion of people that we refer people to, because you can imagine dating rips off the Band-Aids. And when you look under the Band-Aid, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be organized and dealt with in order for us to move forward in the dating world successfully. So, well, tell us, Sara Jane, how are there other, like your big gems? Like, what would you tell anybody listening to this, since how we should best mind our manners?
In the dating life?
Anywhere. Like, what are the biggest things you could say, you know what? You might think this, but this is actually what you should be doing.
That's a good question. So one of my favorite rules for manners and just living a positive life and creating a positive energy cycle around you is, when you're in your community, or whether it's where you live with your neighbors, or the coffee shop you frequent at, or your school or your workplace, that upon eye contact, smile. And smiling is, first of all, it costs you nothing. It's a universal language. It's the only gesture that even babies, before they speak, they can respond to a smile. They smile back to a smile. And you don't really know what's going on through somebody's life, right? But if, let's say, you're walking past them in the corridor, you're with them in the lift, upon eye contact, smile, and you can follow up with a good morning or a good afternoon or how's your day, etc. But the power of a smile is so underrated, and usually it's a reflex. The person will smile back at you, and seeing the light in their eyes when you smile at them, and then how good it makes you feel when they smile back at you, is a positive reinforcement cycle that just is a great addition to your day.
That's such great advice. If you make eye contact with anybody, smile, and you will get it back, right? Because we mirror those things immediately. Sometimes, you know, as part of getting people out of their comfort zone in the dating world and like making connections and flirting, I tell my clients, okay, I want you to make eye contact with someone that feels just a little bit uncomfortable. So I tell them 3 seconds of eye contact and a smile. So we can practice it here. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. It's a long time, but there's something magical that happens in that moment because it's just over that comfort line, but it tells someone, I'm interested in you. And what that is, it's in a sense, a bid to come and talk to me. If I make 3 seconds of eye contact with you and a smile, then I might look away. And if I look back at you again, it means, dude, come over here, say hi. Or being the independent, strong women we are, in New York pickup dating culture, like you were talking about, that totally made me laugh, right? You walk up to that person and strike up a conversation and smile. It's that easy.
Yeah, and you know what? It's such a shame now with online dating apps that we don't have that anymore. And a lot of men just feel like they don't need to go. And it is tough on the men. A lot of men are afraid of rejection. You'd be surprised. Even just the other day, I was with a friend, a guy friend, tall, good-looking, really cool guy. And he told me that he's never ever like picked someone up or never asked. All the girls he's dated have hit on him. And so because of a fear of rejection. And that's something that like I really, really miss in New York. I remember I'd also do the looking twice, right? So you look at them for that 3 seconds and then you look away, but then you look again and they can see that you're looking at them twice. It was just so fun. I miss those days of New York. Obviously, I'm a married woman now, so I can't really practice those things, but I've been there and done that.
Exactly. Well, you know what? You could just practice it, not to like go pick someone up, but just to see if you still got it.
Yeah, that's important too.
Right, exactly. My husband will love that. So that's awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with us?
I think that early on in dating, you should, one of the little tests you can do, and this is not like a power play test. This is just because you want to really understand that other person, right? Break a date or say no to something and see how that person responds. And if they get angry and controlling and don't take no for an answer, again, this goes back to what we mentioned earlier in our conversation, like run the other direction. But if they're cool, they're like, fine, no problem, like blah, blah, blah. Then, like,
that's a good
this is a good person. And this tip was given to me on my Netflix show by one of my students, Rochelle. I think she's episode 3. And she said that her mother's sisters, her aunties, would tell her this early on in a relationship, break a date. And that'll tell you a lot about the other person. Or just say no to something, and say no to something you're truly not comfortable with. Like, don't be afraid of, like, don't feel like you have to agree and say yes to everything. It's when you say no that you'll see the other person's true colors.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's also how you say no that will determine if that person will want to go out with you again as well. So like you're saying, this is such a fun dance. I always tell people, if you come from a place of love and you come from a good place, you'll deliver any of your messages authentically, but with kindness. And that is so much more, people can absorb almost anything, right? Based on how we say it. If you assume positive intent. So let's say, for example, you canceled a date with me, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had my whole day planned around this. But what I do immediately in my head is I change my story. I assume positive intent. You know what? Something really important happened for her, or something that she didn't want to do this either. And so the minute you tell yourself the other story, you self-regulate. You come back to your homeostasis. You're balanced again. Then I can respond to you, wow, Sara Jane, I'm so, I hope everything is okay with you. And I hope that everybody in your life is healthy and happy. And I would love to meet up with you when you have a chance again.
Yeah. And that's as simple as it is. Hopefully we're not training the crazy people listening to this podcast on how to give green flag answers.
Right, exactly. No crazy people listen to this podcast. We only have the savory good crowd that listens to us here. So this was so fun. Where can people get your book? Where can they get more Sara Jane Ho?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at sarajaneho.com. Sarah with no H.
I'm following you right now.
Amazing. And then the book is online or at your local bookstore. And the brand is Antevorta Labs. So that's ANTEVORTA LABS labs.com for vulva care, for the care that no one sees, but the confidence everyone notices is what I like to say.
Oh, I like it. And that's all natural and holistic. So fun having you on today. What an amazing conversation. So we'll definitely have to have you on again. And we're excited for all of your new developments, your book, your podcast as well, and look forward to being in touch. And smart daters, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. And, this week, my challenge to you is to do what Sara Jane said, to look up at people, make eye contact, and smile at people. And if you want the honors or the AP or the Harvard twist to this, make 3 seconds of eye contact and smile at people and see what happens. And if you love this episode, rate it, share it. We love it. And until the next episode, I bid you farewell and a week of psychotic optimism.